Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Paige and I am a first-time mom to this little guy. His name is Oliver and he is going to help me in today's video. We are going to be talking about our birth story. I thought it would be great to make a video just kind of explaining our situation with medically inducing labor, which I was terrified of. And I thought that I could give a little bit of a backstory with Oliver. We did find out at 24 weeks that he was fetal growth restricted. So he started out in the 9th percentile when we measured at the 20-week scan, and that was with the whole anatomy scan when they go over everything, make sure everything is fine. And he's fine, he was fine, just everything was a little smaller than it should be. So they wanted to monitor us with getting another ultrasound at week 24. So we did that, and he was still pretty darn small. I'm pretty sure he was still in the 9th percentile, and then it was like every week that went by he was in a lower percentile. So under 10 percentile you're technically supposed to be under, like, getting all the monitoring. And so we had weekly appointments with specialists and doing some different tests with his heart rate, and then the ultrasounds to measure and to look a little further at his umbilical cord, which he ended up having restriction in his umbilical cord. So that's why he was not getting the blood flow to the placenta and back as much as he should have. They did decide that they wanted me to try to get to 37 weeks to then medically induce to have Oliver a little early. So that was all very terrifying. We did not know when they were maybe going to have to get him out. That was a little nerve-wracking, and we just didn't know what to expect. They told us to have our hospital bags ready and just be prepped just in case we have to go in, get him out even earlier, but the plan was to get to 37 weeks. So I thankfully was able to get to 37 weeks, and they had us scheduled for our induction. So that was just crazy anyway, because here I am thinking I'm gonna go into natural spontaneous labor. My body's just gonna do its thing. And then, you know, to find out that you're getting induced is just a little different. And I had never really thought of any other way. So just being open to another process was difficult, but my birth plan, which is just birth preferences, I decided to try to be open since I wasn't going to be able to do everything naturally. They told us to expect to be at the hospital for at least a few days of like the waiting in between to try to give birth, because your body just doesn't know it's going to be going into labor. So that can take a little while, especially for first baby. This is my first delivery, so it was just wild. But I did have a very positive experience with giving birth, so I'm very excited to share our story and our experience, because I think hopefully it will help ease somebody's mind if you have to get induced, or just if you're curious of how our birth went, or if you just randomly stumbled upon this video. It is interesting, I think, to hear about other people's birth stories. I loved these videos, so I hope that I can make some new mom videos to add to the community, because I binge watched these videos so much. So the start of our birth story will be us showing up at 7:30 in the morning at the hospital. They had us scheduled to get into a room and get situated and settled. And I'm happy that they got us settled in an actual like labor room, so we didn't have to move again after we started the medication and everything. So that was really nice because I didn't really know what to expect with that either. Most cases, I feel like sometimes if they induce you, they give you the medication and then you go home. But since we were technically more of a high risk situation with him being fetal growth restricted, they wanted us to be monitored and hooked up to monitors the whole time. So they knew exactly how his heart rate was doing, if I was having contractions, all that good stuff. They wanted to be able to see everything. So I'm very thankful that they wanted us to be there the whole time. So the dogs are gonna want to chew on their bones while I make this video, and he is snoring, so just bear with me. When we first got situated, I was planning and had prepped and watched videos and got as much information on Cytotec, which is what I thought that I was going to be starting out with the induction. There's either Cytotec or Cervidil, and they decided that I was a better candidate for Cervidil because with, again, our situation, if they had to, they can remove the strip of medication because they actually insert that inside of you. So then your body will slowly take in the medication rather than, I think the other one was a pill or something. They just thought it was better because they could take it out if they had to. So that was a 12-hour process of that medication strip being inserted, which was not bad at all. If you are curious about the Cervidil or you know that you're getting that, I don't know if I just have a higher pain tolerance, but it really didn't hurt at all. Especially, I mean, it was uncomfortable when they were inserting it, and then it was a little scratchy and uncomfortable, but I mean, you can still be up and active walking around if you want to be on the ball bouncing, or you want to go to the bathroom and you want to eat, you want to do everything's just normal. So I loved that I didn't have to restrict myself at all. So with that was totally fine. After the 12 hours, they did see, I think I had made a little bit of progress, or maybe they could tell that I had softened out a little bit with my cervix and everything. So they then wanted to use, I believe, what they call the Foley bulb. I'm not certain, but the balloon, the mechanical balloon, they decided to go that route to get me a little bit more dilated to start the process in hopes that my body will go into natural active labor. So that was another 12-hour process, and my husband and I, honestly, the first day and a half was kind of fun. We were just relaxing. He went and got us really good food, and we just hung out, and it was just such a weird feeling because I knew I was going to give birth, but it was such a relaxed experience. And yeah, so it was really cool to be able to have that, I don't know, kind of relaxed time. We were able to sort of nap, but you know, with adrenaline and you're in the hospital, it's just kind of hard. So I was not in any pain whatsoever, though. I was having some contractions, and especially when they put the balloon in, there was so much pressure. I was having a lot of lower back pressure, and then when I would have contractions and tightening, I could really feel it in my lower back, but it wasn't anything unbearable at all. I had really bad menstrual cycles and periods like my whole life. So just kind of being used to being uncomfortable and having that pain with the cramps and stuff is kind of what I told myself, like, you can get through. They did explain the pain medications and the different, I guess, routes that I could go for pain management. And I was so set on not having an epidural. I don't know what it is, but I just straight up told myself, like, you're not getting an epidural. Obviously, if I had to, it would have been fine. And I told my husband, if I get to a certain point and I feel like I do need it, then yes, like, let me get it. But please remind me that I don't want it if I get to that point where, like, I feel like I can get through whatever I'm going through. So I was so dead set on not getting the epidural that I think it kind of helped progress me through the contractions, because I just kept thinking, like, I don't want to get the epidural. This is totally fine. You know, like, just trying to stay so positive. So I was working through contractions, and my husband was amazing at doing the counter pressure, and I had the birthing combs, which I think really helped. I was just like in a zone of breathing every time a contraction came. I was just really trying to work through and get through each contraction. They really weren't that bad yet. So I did have to kind of change my positioning with how Oliver was doing, because they could see that his heart rate would drop when I would get an intense contraction. So they were a little worried about that, but I was able to kind of change around positions and see what was comfortable for me and him and work through the contractions. So I was able to get through, and I actually got to a 5 for 5 centimeters dilated, and I was feeling okay. They did say that I would have to start the Pitocin. So this was the next morning after I had the balloon in. They said, you're going to want to eat something, because once you start the Pitocin, you cannot have actual food. You have to be on liquid, clear liquids. So I was glad that I had a nice meal, because once they started the Pitocin, things did get a little more intense, and I don't even know how you'd want to eat during that point in labor anyway, but maybe some people are comfortable. I guess if you get an epidural and you can't feel the contractions, then you'll eat and sleep and do the things. But I was feeling pretty good still, so I just said, yep, start the Pitocin. I did actually opt for trying the nitrous oxide, the laughing gas like mask that I can control, use it as I'm breathing, when I want to. And so I did do that for a while. It wasn't too long, but once they started the Pitocin and kept upping the dosage, it was like things kind of, things progressed, and I don't know, at a certain point, I didn't want to use the nitrous oxide. I was using the comb and heavily relying on my husband to push on my back and help me through the contractions that way. So that's just what worked for me. So I was able to get through those first contractions with the Pitocin, but I was thinking, like, okay, this has been like a couple hours of dealing with intense contractions. I was a little more open to an epidural at the thought of having to go like a whole nother day, because in my head I was kind of thinking like I'd have a whole nother, like, even like a full afternoon and night of having to go through this, like, these contractions to get to active labor. So I was a little worried, because I'm like, I don't want to get too tired. You know, I want to like be able to enjoy my experience, blah, blah, blah. Well, as I was kind of considering that, they came in and they gave me a little cervical check, and they said that I had progressed to, no, I think I had stayed at a 5, but maybe I was like a little softer, like a little more thinned out. So they were happy with what progress I had been making, that they decided that they could break my water and really get things moving, because they said then, you know, the pressure's a little different and you might dilate more and yada yada. But they made it sound like it still could take a while. So we had let our family, you know what was going on, and I had told my mom I thought that they should maybe come up, but we weren't really sure how long it was going to be before I was going to be like actually pushing. So they broke my water, and I said, okay, well, I really need to go to the bathroom. And then I was going to maybe say something about an epidural, or like, you know, kind of ask at what point do I have until I can't get it anymore. So first things first, I had to go to the bathroom. Like, I have to pee so bad. The nurses were still in the room or just nearby or however. But I mentioned that I felt like I had to go poo. And they said, if it's constant pressure, that's the baby. It's not poo. So do not push. Like, okay, well, I do have to pee, so I'm going to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom. As soon as I sat down, I think it was just like getting up, you know, after they broke my water. I don't know, he must have like dropped just enough, and then with the movement and then sitting on the toilet, he dropped, and I immediately started screaming because all of the pressure, I was like, oh my gosh, I am going to poo. Like, I think I yelled that, like, I have to poo. And the nurses ran into the bathroom. They're like, no, that's not poo, that's the baby. Like, get up, we're getting you to the bed. So they like were holding underneath me, and one of the nurses was saying on the way over to the bed, like, you're not gonna have that baby in the toilet because then it's like super high risk. There's so many people that have to come in here and it's a mess. Like, we're getting you to the bed, you're having this baby out here. So, you know, at this point, and I get into such a zone of like, because I think with the contractions, I was just in my own world of like, just breathe through, you're fine. I closed my eyes. My eyes were closed for the rest of labor because I was just trying to zone out and stay positive, and calm. And I feel like everything was pretty calm. Obviously doctors and nurses and everybody were in there getting set up for us to push potentially. So the doctor checks me and he's like, you're now at an 8. So this was like 5 minutes from them breaking my water to then I'm back in the bed and I'm at 8 centimeters. So I go from 5 to an 8 just like that. And he said, you're going to be pushing soon. Like, this baby's coming out. So that was just crazy to hear. And I think it really made everything very real. I had a hard time like comprehending that I was going to be having a baby up until this point. So that solidified it. So I then at that point, again, my eyes are closed. I'm breathing through the contractions. They're pretty intense, but at that point, you kind of just forget like what's going on. You don't really think about the pain because now it's like, oh my God, this baby is coming. Like, that is what you're focusing on, is the baby coming out. So you're not focused on the pain of like getting through the contractions anymore. Like, you're done with that. Like, we are through with that. We're good. we're moving on to pushing the baby. So I then had to push for only about 20 minutes, and he made his arrival, and it was not bad. I remember when I was pushing and trying to get him lower and lower with the contractions, I still had the feeling that I had to poo. So that was really bothering me because I felt like I couldn't really focus. I was worried about pooping on the bed, which that's the least of the worries. And actually one of the nurses said, no, if you we like to see people poop because we know you're actually pushing the right way. So yeah, I was in my head about feeling like I had to poo. And then it was bearing down and getting him out. When I would open my eyes, I'd look at my husband and I was holding onto his arm as they're trying to help me with keeping my legs up. And I even stopped and said I don't want to tear, and they're it's fine, we'll tell you. So they were so great. The nurses and doctors were absolutely amazing, and they were doing the warm compress and helping down there. And then my OB was actually in there, which was amazing, and she said, or she was coaching me through, with when to push and what to do and when to not push as much so I wouldn't tear as much. And luckily I only had a teeny tiny little tear, did not have to get stitches or anything. She said that she could maybe fit one stitch in, but it probably would hurt way worse to get it than to just deal with it. And honestly, it didn't even bother me. I don't even know where the tear was. So I think that was a good sign for sure. And they brought baby boy up on my chest. We did some skin to skin, and they delivered the placenta and everything, which did not hurt at all. Also, you're in such a newborn, you're in such a baby bubble that you're whatever, do what you need to do down there. I just want to hold this thing that I created inside of me. It's such a weird feeling. My husband and I were just on cloud nine, and we still are. But at that point, his nurse and lactation specialist came in. They were amazing because now in my head, I'm okay, this is awesome that we get this time, but when is he going to the NICU? That was the next thing where it's okay, when do we have to give him up so they can take him to the NICU? Our doctors had said that we were going to be leaving before him. He would definitely most likely have some NICU time. We just didn't know how much because we didn't know what condition he was going to be in. So it was just weird, not knowing if he was going and when. But he was able to pass his first blood sugar test, which was amazing. And I think that's honestly what kept him with us, to be able to go up to the mother baby room, because if they don't pass that first blood sugar test, they have to go and do all the things in the NICU to make sure that they're gonna eat and do what they need to do. He passed the blood sugar test, and he was able to go up with us to the mother baby room, which was amazing. And then they did all the tests that they needed to do right then and there, in the room with us. They would come in periodically and do different tests that they needed to do. He was 4 pounds 8 ounces when he was born, so he made it past that check to use the car seat to get home. And he dropped a couple ounces when we were at the hospital, but then since we've been home, he's definitely been gaining, and the doctors are very happy with him. So we were so pleasantly surprised he didn't have to have the NICU time like we were planning on, because that's just so scary, and not knowing what's going on and how healthy your baby is. But he was totally fine, just small. And I think everybody, all the nurses and everybody that saw him, were so surprised by him and how he was passing his tests, and we are so thrilled with him. It just is a wild ride, but I am feeling super blessed for how everything worked out for us. And I know we had so many people on our side through this whole pregnancy journey. I cannot thank our friends and family enough for all the support that we have had. And we truly would not have, well, I know I truly would not have been able to get through without some of the encouraging thoughts and the prayers and everything that happened for us to be able to bring this healthy baby boy home. But we are just so thrilled, and we're so excited to be in this chapter, and I can't wait to make more videos with our experiences and my experience as a first-time mom. And yeah, we'll see you next time.